Hi everybody, it's Tracy here. We're in Dating a Dad, and the topic for today is discipline. This is actually a 12-part series, so this is the third of 12. This week we were talking about getting on the same page with your partner, your spouse, and how important that is. Why is it important? Because that's really the number one reason, maybe behind incessant antics of an ex-wife or a birth mom. That not being on the same page with your partner is the main reason why so many second marriages with kids are failing. So we really want to put some effort into making that happen. So earlier this week, we talked about two other important ways or issues in getting on the same page. The first one is about your core values, about discussing with your partner what's really important to you in life. And the other one we talked about was parenting styles and the four main types of parenting styles. And you can watch the last video about that if you missed it. If you're just finding this randomly online, I'll introduce myself again. My name is Tracy Poisner, and I host this group called Dating a Dad, which is an online discussion and education forum, I would say, for stepmoms who are struggling with insecurity and frustration around their family relationships. So everyone is welcome, and you can find us online in Facebook as a group called Dating a Dad. So today's talk is about getting on the same page with regard to expectations. And the one thing that I hear most stepmoms saying to me personally and online is, this is nothing like what I was expecting. And I can tell you my own personal story about that. When I became involved with my present husband, his three kids lived very far away, 3-hour drive with their mom. They were quite little. I think they were 6, 7, and 10, something around that age. And neither one of us had any expectation at all of them being around more than random weekends and maybe holidays. And then, surprise, 2 years later, the oldest one came. He stayed for about 6 months and decided to go back. And another 2 years later, the middle boy came and stayed for 6 years, and he's still here now. And last year, the youngest one arrived, and she's still here with us full time. So things changed, and happily for me, it's a very much, very much desired outcome. So it's a really good thing. Anyway, I looked on our group this morning to see what people had written about what their expectations were or what was hard for them. And emotional roller coaster is the word that keeps coming up again and again. And I've asked in some other groups for people to tell me what kind of expectations were hard for them or what took them by surprise. One person said how difficult it has proved to bond with my stepson. Someone else said, I didn't expect my stepkids to ever live with us. That for sure was my story. Someone else said, I'm surprised that my husband would let a 15-year-old rule the house. We'll talk about that in a minute. And one more person in our group talked about having to deal with a nanny, which is another whole kind of strange level of sharing discipline responsibilities with someone who is not part of your family. So I've sort of set apart 3 different areas where we can work to get on the same page around expectations. And the first step is to talk about it. And I know there are some couples who set aside special meeting times, maybe one evening a week or one day in a month or sometime when the kids aren't there, where you know that you'll have time to talk about important issues between you. So if you're the type of person who likes to do things official and make kind of special meeting times, go out for coffee, or just say we're going to talk now for 30 minutes, and when the time's up, we'll get accomplished whatever we can. That's a good idea. Others, I've never been a meeting type of person. I talk things over with my partner when it feels like the right time, or when we're both in a mood for it. So either way works. But if you feel intimidated at the idea of bringing up this idea of expectations, one thing you could say is, I need to know what you're expecting from me. I need to know what you're expecting this to look like, this family or this situation where I'm going to be helping you to raise your kids. What do you expect this to look like? And how can we get there? Something else you can say is, I need you to know what I'm expecting, and if that's realistic, and how you can help me. Those are just, I don't know, some sample phrases that you can use if you feel stuck about bringing up the issue. But it's very important to make sure that you're both clear in what you expect. So troubleshooting, what could come up that you don't foresee, or that is difficult to work out between you? One thing is that because of different parenting styles, or because of the emotional difficulties of a divorce situation with kids, your partner might dislike setting limits or holding limits or making rules, and really prefer that you take over that role. And that can work sometimes, but in general, it can be difficult for kids to accept you in an authority position, or accept your authority in their lives. Dr. James Bray, who wrote an awesome book called Step Families, says the book is about his 10-year study of a large group of step families. Those were all stepfather families, where the children were birth children of the mom, and a stepfather came into the family. So it's a very specific niche of families that he was looking at, but it's an excellent book. And he identified how certain types of step parents want to make a kind of family that's the one that they feel comfortable in. And sometimes your spouse grew up in a household, for instance, where the mother made all the rules. That would be a matriarchal type of family. And he might be more comfortable with that and hope that you'll just carry on like that. The problem can be that the kids are not yet ready to accept you having that kind of role in their lives. So it's important to know that it takes about 2 years for a step family to even start to gel. And stories that you hear about other families that just move in all together and it's like the Brady Bunch, it's pretty rare. And I think most of those families would even tell you that there are hidden stories that nobody sees from the outside. So we need to be patient, and we need to wait for the right time for all of those things to happen. We also need to go over the kind of what happens if situations. Some of us get together with a partner who is in the middle of a custody battle, and it can take years for that to sort itself out. So you might be all on your own as a couple for a long time, and then from one day to the next, you have kids in your household. Is it your partner's wish to go after full custody? And how do you feel about that? How do you feel about being a full-time parent? What if you and your partner move away from where your stepkids live, so that you have to deal with different kinds of visits, maybe having them for longer periods of time? What about when the kids get older and maybe want to live with you full time, which is exactly what happened in my situation. So I joke with my husband that we've been the serial parents of single a single child because my daughter was an only child, and my partner was here living in our house, although we weren't together at the time. He was a tenant. It's one of those stories. But he certainly knew my daughter for a number of years as an only child in his house, and then we've had each of his kids one at a time. Now we have 2 of them together. Step 2 in getting on the same page with your expectations is to manage your own expectations about what's possible and about what you need from them in terms of how they handle your limits and your husband's limits. And the main thing I want to talk about here is what they call the nacho kids theory, the disengaging technique. Nacho kids, you just have to kind of say that with a little attitude and you'll get the idea, right? These are not your kids. This is not your child. This is one of the hardest parts of step parenting, to disengage from the outcome. And I've done a previous live stream about disengaging, about my take on it. I think it's completely brilliant and it's an amazing, wonderful contribution. I didn't write the disengaging essay, and I give full credit to the anonymous author who did it. It's an anonymous blog called Filling Your Niche, Niche. You can find it there online. But my take on disengaging is that we need to always be in a position of disengaging, that we need to find the right place for us to back up so that the parent, the actual birth parent of these children in your household, which is not you, that parent is doing his or her parenting work in an appropriate way. And sometimes we fill in for the function of that parent who doesn't care so much to make those rules or hold those limits. And we have to back up and let them do their work and let them make what seems to us to be mistakes and let them live that with the kids. It's their story, and we can participate in it behind the scenes by talking with your partner about how you think things might be better if they did something in a different way. But in the end, it's their call. It's their kid. And it's not easy. It's not easy to disengage from outcomes. That is the goal of most types of meditation, to live in the present and not be concerned about what comes next, to just stay present, do what you can do now, and let go of what's coming down the road. Step 3, what can you expect from the kids? Getting clear and getting on the same page with your partner about what's possible for the kids. This has to do with increasing your understanding and learning about childhood development. And for those stepmoms who are new to the parenting game, this can feel like an incredibly steep learning curve. All other moms appear to know more and do it better and have it more under control. And I have to tell you that this is true of all moms. This is not a stepmom thing. Every mom on the planet thinks that everyone else gets it except for her. So the problem is that you probably have not been in the picture since the child was born. In some cases, I've read some stories where, in fact, you have been in the picture since the child was born, but that would be an exception to the rule. So you need to start now, if you haven't already, to build your parenting toolbox. You need some of the same kind of basic parenting skills that all moms need and are learning. And the internet is full of resources. The bookstores and libraries are full of resources. For sure, your neighborhood is probably full of resources. It's a little bit difficult reaching out because, there's something called the Mommy Club that stepmoms somehow never feel welcome in when the child is not your birth child. It's hard sometimes to really connect and bond with other mothers and ask for help. But that's what a group like Dating a Dad is really good for. We're there to help with our experience and our resources to help you over these hurdles. One of the best tools that I've ever found for a parenting toolbox is a website called Hand in Hand Parenting. And I'll put the link in the notes afterward. handinhandparenting.org. This is a website that teaches some wonderful parenting techniques around discipline. And I really learned from Patty Whipfler, who is the founder of that program and the author of the companion book to that website, which is called Listen. I really, really learned something new from her, which is the meaning of discipline, the purpose of setting limits for our children, because limits are healing. Limits cause a type of a healing process and sometimes a healing crisis to occur that really allows them to get past and heal from the wounds that are causing the behaviors that we don't want. This is what we ultimately want. We want them to get over the inner problem that is causing this unwanted behavior. We have to remember that kids are the victims of the same divorce that gifted you your partner. You're the winner. And these kids are the losers of that situation. They are often, very often, also the victims of angry or vindictive birth mothers who use them as human cannonballs to lob into our homes, to explode on us and make trouble. And what an awful life to be a human cannonball. So we really want to learn how to use limits to help heal our stepkids. And what a privilege it is to be in a place where we can do that for someone. So just to recap what we did today, step one, have a conversation or set up a meeting to discuss expectations with your partner. Step two, manage your own expectations by learning to disengage and look up the disengaging essay or the Nacho Kids theory. And step three, start building your own parenting resource toolkit, your own understanding of childhood developments and ways that people deal with the normal developmental stages of childhood. Next week, we're going to talk on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday about setting limits. So thanks so much for joining me. Bye.